Joo, pitää informoida tuo tulkkiparille. Me laitetaan tämän salasanan ja sanoa, että jos hän kilahtaa puhelimeen. En tiedä mikä se.
Kohta saa tavata toisella
Joo, no mutta kiitoksia. Minä informoin tälle parille meidän suljen että saan tämän säädetty kuntoon. Niin pitäisi näin toimia. Yes, mutta Miettinen. So is going to right to speak. Employees, interpreters, and
Nyt mä pääsin puheluun. Myös huikea, että tässä on tämmönen mun kameran ruutu, mikä vie 4/4 ruudusta, mitä voi siirrellä, mutta tätä ei voi sulkea.
Sitten
tulkee. Saadaan niin sanotusti jotain etenemään. Elina laittoi, että Emmi ja Imran, jos ne pääsis tänne Discordiin, niin pääsis alkamaan. Mä en tiedä, mä en saa puhelinta ehkä mä en tiedä, saan ehkä jos mä keplottelen, mä saan sen tähän latinkiin, niin mulla ei tule kestää toi akku kuitenkaan jotain 4 tuntia striimausta. Tää vähän kehitellään, miten tätä tehdään. Katsotaan. Ehkä meidän tulkattavat sen tämän paikan.
Joo, siis sun ääni nyt kuulemma kyllä kuuluu ja etänä
He saavat siis sen sitä kautta. Eli pystynkö aloittamaan?
Toimii sen, jos sä yrität nyt sit tulkata.
Alright. Mä vaihtelen tän setupin niin, että mä erotaudun tästä Discordista ja rupean tulkkaan. Tai mä oon muuten.
Joo. Niin paitsi, jos sieltä Discordissa, niin siis me en kuule sinua ollenkaan.
Niin siis mä oon Discordissa, mutta mä laitan mutelle. Siksi aikaa.
Niin, mutta sit me en kuule sun tulkata ollenkaan, sitä on vähän vaikea vaihtaa.
No mä vaan sanon, että mä laitan sen siinä vaiheessa, kun mä haluan vaihtaa päälle. Laitetaan se puoli tuntia.
Joo, siis Eveli yritin kysyä, että niin, että pitääkö se ei se olla sama salasana, että se ei tuli vastannut. Sitten ei niin, että te vaan käyttäisit samaa. Mutta siis joo, jos sulle toimii se kuva, niin yritä siellä nyt sit tulkata vähän.
Mä aloitan tästä. So we have some errors. You get a better reporting when we get to the point that we get this more automatically. You can see that this rental income, is this the correct slide? I hope. Is this the correct report? I hope it is. Okay, so right. We don't have anything else here to my knowledge other than the rental activity. As you can see that the percentages are very, very much larger. They have changed a lot. We have surpassed our budget in rental activities as opposed to everything. The report bases are changing, so I have to rethink everything. And it seems as if something slipped through the cracks. Nevertheless, regrettably, some errors were made. I haven't not used enough time with the controller, but 95,000 in the red in rental activities. Here you can see negatively the coronavirus influences. We have expenses that are still need to be paid. We have empty venues that are not being used. Then we have the KY inclusion in Smökki should have started earlier. And from Aina magazine, we have the survey costs incurred. Also on the administrative side, the largest deficits are in general costs and office costs that we usually have things at the office. The remote events and being at the remote offices, everybody being at home and working remotely is causing also some cost savings for us. On communications, we have resourced more on translations. That's what we had budgeted originally. But no other reasons for the increase. And on supporting activities on ICT, we have surpassed our budget, but here we clarified the write-ups further so that we aren't so much in the red as we originally foresaw or anticipated to be. But all in all, a different kind of year, and it's really, really hard to predict what happens during these kinds of times. Hopefully next year things will be more stable and we can create the budget so that we can meet the budget. And hopefully we've surpassed coronavirus next year at this time. So from the financial point of view, that's all. Any questions? Looks like no questions. So the proposal is that the Representing Council placed on record the first to third quarter financial review decided. Closing item 8 and moving on to item 9, the preliminary discussion of the AYYE strategy. Hello, I'm Nora from the board. Talk about strategy. First preliminary debate. First off, you've been sent your preliminary material and everything I state here as on the material. In addition, we've asked you to create group speeches, and lots of you have sent them to the Repco list, and hopefully everybody who has done the ask for the floor, they can list them so we can check your points after the meeting. Next up, we will have the structure of the strategy, the updating cycle, and the proposal for AYY's values. And at the end, I will have a couple of words on the process itself and how it will progress. First off, on structure and framework, and what we've actually wanted to create with this process, we want to create a strategy that looks like the members. That what kind of student union will you be wanting in the future? In the future, we'll answer all the challenges and support our management and prioritizing at the office. A large change in our internal activities would be one strategy that will guide all of our activities instead of having two policy papers as we have now, guiding strategy. And the goal of the large strategy is that we have these goals pertaining to values, and if we want to clarify the steps to reach those goals, they will be made through different kinds of plans. So completely these practical things are not part of the strategy. So this is kind of a vision paper. Here is our strategy framework. In many ways, we've watched or looked at this with you, and in general, we increased a forward here, added a forward. What kind of document is this? When is it being updated? Why, etc. So, and in general, our means to convey our thoughts on when this paper is being used at AYYE. But AYYE has a large shift in infrastructure, and this is something that we aim to correct with this document. Then we have this vision, the best student life in the world. And then we are also clarifying our mission, which comes from the university law, which is something we want to do so that we can retain it in our thought processes when we are thinking of how to do things and keep it actively in there, involved in the strategy as well. Then we are going to add values to prioritize our decision making, which we'll be discussing soon. And this upper blob, which is that this would be kind of in-depth creation, that we wouldn't need to change this all the time, but it would retain itself for a longer time. And we could change it in the future if needs be, but hopefully they would last for quite a bit of time. And also we have these strategic goals, out of which we have planned that at least we start from the point that we have general goals that our whole organization will commit to. These should be not too many or not too numerous because they're quite large, and they could answer the questions like how do we create the world's best student life, or what is it, and what is very specifically important to us. In addition, we feel that even though we want to clarify our policies, that we have these large goals that everybody can commit to, it's not enough. We need something more concrete. So these goals that will be in the same level that currently we have in the direction of the student union, we have these goals, so which are a bit more concrete. How to reach these big goals? What do these mean? What do these mean on a specific sector? And the starting point here is that in our brand strategy we have this division into advocacy, services, and community. And regarding these, we are quite flexible in the process. So if this would not serve us in the best possible way, or in our goal we maybe have 1 or 5, etc., so then we will be more flexible and reevaluate at that stage. So these are not set in stone. Next up, we have this updating cycle. We've talked about framework. We haven't talked about the updating cycle, so I will be going more in depth into this. One thing we've tried to include in this cycle is that this cycle is not necessarily the same as time frame when we want something like a strategic goal that we want to reach it. It's kind of clear if we have something in the strategy, we might read it and understand it. Okay, maybe we won't want to, or it's not realistic to get this done in 2 years. So we kind of like to separate these things and to notify and take into note that this is not something that we want to get this done really quickly. So let's not build needless pressure to the organization in general or our staff members or anything. This is why having a forward is an excellent means of conveying this message. Based on experience, we've also noticed that updating every 2 years is too much. It's quite workload heavy, and the direction of the student union document, it's being updated every 2 years. Then we also feel that each new student union repco should have a chance to affect how the student union should be progressing. So this is why it would be nice to have the strategy at least up for observation every few years. In addition, what I mentioned before is that we have lots of people changing, and this is why things might be lost. So we try to include this in the update cycle, is that how do we ensure longevity and continuity in our activities. A couple of here is that how can we create a strategy that how can we react fast if things need to be reacted to, and how can we create long-term goals. Also thought of a living strategy, which is a model that Aalto is using currently. We're quite inspired of that. So we are creating a time-lasting document that is being reevaluated from time to time and is being updated always when needs be. Not going into huge depth analysis, but just looking at something, deciding it needs updating, and then updating it. This kind of strategy does not have an expiration point, but it can actually retain for a long amount of time. The strength of this is that we could see that this would be something for AYY that we didn't needlessly need to create a long-term strategy work. But then again, it's of course something that the future people or the deciders in the future might do nevertheless. We don't need to reevaluate it. It might be very work intensive, so it would be hard to also foresee during which years would this process be very workload heavy. So these are what we've been thinking, and this is what we've come up with as a proposal. So we suggest that our strategies period would be 4 years. So in this 21, we would set this into motion, and then in 24, we would be creating strategy work, update the strategy, create a decision at the representative council, and we would have a new strategy starting from 25. We feel that it's important for AYY to foresee when the large workloads will hit the current staff, or the incumbent staff. And we've ensured that we will be making big decisions next year. This would give us 4 years of time to work on the goals, and if we have goals that might take 10 years, like real estate issues might take 10 years, so this might be included in the forward. In addition, we propose that we do a halfway evaluation after 2 years, and it's just something that would be brought to the representative council. And in this stage, we would give the intermediary representative council, we can create changes if needs be, but the same paper will be in force after that as well. We don't need to make any changes, or we don't need to actually change anything or renew the strategy if we foresee or if we see it as actually good. We also propose an addition from our living strategy, a process with which the board will evaluate the strategy annually. We want this to be enforced so that we can create a means of operation where if we need to change the strategy, if we have the strategy come into the board's table, what do we have, what do we see, what do we want? Do we need to react, or this year do we need to focus on something? Or do we need to bring things to the representative council in larger format than we previously anticipated? And this is the document decided by the representative council. But the point is that we would take it, we would look at it, decide whether or not things are progressing in the manner that we want. Is the will for change the same as it was before? And this was actually be a natural situation to evaluate how the strategy has succeeded as a whole. But we could keep it this as an element. Next, I have the AYY values. As for values, I've already talked about this a bit. We have the survey made to members, both the committees and the office. What we do that, what we need to have that values would tell what we do, not how we should do. When we talk about values, if something is a value to us, it needs to be valuable in all circumstances, always. So it's very, very high in priority. Currently, you can think that what do you want AYY to be? What values do you want AYY to retain? They can represent will. Of course, when we create or decide on values, we need to implement them. I created this pie chart for you. I've shown this to you before in strategy news.
arvoja on noussut tässä työssä esiin. Ja
What
siinä
kind of values
4 kokonaisuutta, joiden
are
perusteella
visible? We have 4 items
muodostettu. Ja
that we have created the values based on.
tämä muodostuu sitten tällaiset arvot, eli
And here we have the value. We have student centricity, well-being, community, and a 4th value, which Interpreter regrettably did not see. I will go through these one by one now. And on temerity, we've written that it's valuable for AYYE, that it has enough resources, uses resources sparingly, and acts responsibly and ecologically. It's a very broad look on sustainability and accountability. On student centricity, we've written that AYYE is bold. Cooperation is AYY's largest strength. This combines student kind of enthusiasm, growth, renewal, and what kind of interaction do we wish between the members and the student union. So kind of combining 2 themes, and they kind of work very well still. Then we have a diverse and unified community. Everybody is equal in AYYE. Nobody will be persecuted or set in a position, and AYYE values equality and communality. So equality very, very largely here. Also internationality as a point. And 4th is well-being. The well-being of all members is valued at Aalto, AYYE. Empathic and good and humane. And humanity is a key point here. And also a few words on the process and how it proceeds. Here we have the timetable. Today we have the preliminary discussion. We have the strategic goals that we're working on this month. And here we have the committee members. We have the 24th. We have a member meeting of the committee. If you want your members to be present there, please contact them to ensure. The committee is a very, very good place to effect change. Also, at the end of this month's Repco, we'll give you the news. And in December, we would have the 2nd preliminary discussion on strategy, especially where we focus on goals. And at that stage, when the placket or paper is ready, we can look at everything else, but the main weight being on goals. So the decision-making process would be next year's first meeting, which is in February, but we should be ready with this earlier. We feel that this is something that the best way we can work on the strategy and give you the best opportunities to affect and read on actually what's being written. And we're enthusiastic to hear on your thoughts, and we would be more than happy to hear on your thematic needs and wants, so we can include them in the process. And as a reminder, that also remember to utilize the committee inside your group as well. And I don't have anything else. I'm anxiously anticipating your speeches. and Timo will continue from here.
Thank you. Starting discussion. So groups who have prepared their group speeches will present them first. After that, we can have a general discussion. The same as before. If you don't have prepared a speech for your group, please let us know. So Kylteri Rengas first, then Vihreämpi Aalto. Kylteri Rengas is holding their presentation in English.
On the long-term goals, and that the update cycle makes sure that we do not end up with an outdated paper. It should be made very clear, though, that the yearly reviews are quite light, as now planned, so that the long-term goals can actually be achieved. We also feel that the presented values suit AYYE well, and they also reflect the results of the strategy survey. Some themes that we'd like to see in the new strategy are, for example, financial sustainability, preparation for the possible end to automatic membership, communications as a top-level goal across all sectors of AYYE, and supporting the growth of our Otaniemi campus so that it supports the needs of our student associations and the growing number of students on campus as well. Thank you.
Kiitoksia. Seuraavaksi Vihreämpi Aalto, sen jälkeen Luova.
Next Vihreämpi Aalto, then we have Luova. Yes, hello. Antonio from Vihreämpi Aalto. Vihreämpi Aalto is very satisfied with the strategy and the values and update cycle in it, but we propose the following changes. 1. The update cycle seems good, but the annual review seems excessive. Strategy should propose to the board can examine the strategy, but is not obliged to do it annually. Also, it would be good in the introduction it would be stated about the different what different sectors should do regarding a strategy. We're also satisfied with the values, but we would like to modify the contents of 2 values. Sustainable development should be defined according to UN Sustainable Development Objectives. Because this description here is outdated. Sustainability should be seen as a cross-cutting theme within AYYE. Diversity and equality is also a good value, but the current phrasing is not ambitious enough. It should portray AYYE's role as a promoter of equality and as an active operator instead of passive one. This phrasing prohibits discrimination but does not address structural problems. Of course, it is worth striving for that AYYE's finances are sustainable, but does this need to be specifically defined in the strategy? The concrete objectives in the operations could be described elsewhere. Thank you. Thank you. First Luova, then Skisma. Luova, representative group. has been very satisfied with the progress of the strategy, both content and schedule-wise. The structure seems very good framework in general. And once we got the concrete contents, the framework, it was easier to modify the contents. Our group didn't have any specific comment. The value base in the strategy is good and concise, but we propose the following additions to it. The well-being of students is an important issue, and it has been very prominent recently, also in unfortunate ways. We feel the well-being should be a separate value, but the value should also clearly specify that AYYE will actively work for the promotion of well-being, not just take care of it. We see transparency of operations as very essential, which is why we propose that transparency should be added to the values. I hope that the sustainable development objectives will be taken very strongly into account in the real estate side as well, and also in all AYYE's operations. Sustainability needs to be long-term, but if needed, it should be used to question our current procedures regarding construction. Thank you. Now Skisma, then Kem. Our group feels the strategy is very good, well constructed. It's good that the strategy has been unified as a whole. Also, the proposed structure is seen good with their sub-objectives. It is also possible to do changes to strategy if needed. We said the update cycle will also steer the operations better than before. We think the values are good and they guide AYYE's operations and are clear. It's much clearer than previous values. Our group would also like to see the international students and their integration into AYYE's operations to make that more visible. Thank you. Thank you. AYYE thinks that the strategy structure is good and fulfills its objective. The strategy is to steer our operations, and this is done now that the real estate strategy is part of the same package. No other comments. Thank you.
Good. Adding a forward is a good means to ensure continuity. The strategy network should be so that it's easy to update. The proposed 4-year plan is sensible with all the other measures as well. The represented values represent the student union, but we want in student centricity bring forth the idea of student originating ideas, not just from AYYE. In all values, people need to take into account the fact that AYYE exists for its members. Regarding strategic goals and themes, we would like to include the fact that each ALDO member should have the opportunity to build a cross-disciplinary personal study plan and a sustainable real estate growth. And in addition, digitalization should be utilized in reaching our goals, for example, to develop our services on a digital level. Thank you. Do we have a vapaus valita here? No? Then we have Luja. Luja feels that the proposed strategy framework is clear and purposeful. It's good that the strategy has been placed into one item and it's a single paper for the whole to be easy to read and understand. The update cycle is good according to our thought processes. A similar process every 2 years. With the incumbent, RepCo needs to have the power to change the strategy, which has been included in the proposal. Everything does not need to just start from scratch. We feel that the value base depicts the ALDO community currently and in the future, especially well-being as a value is something that we feel is very good because the all well results have been a sad read indeed, and the pandemic probably does not have a positive effect on this. The repercussions of the pandemic are not yet known, so it's good to raise this topic already right now. To the two last questions, our group seconds the decided values, and through our members or member in the committee, we have a good chance of affecting. We thank the board, the office, and the staff for all the strategy work undertaken. Thank you. These concludes all the group speeches. I want to thank you for this very well written out speech. The general discussions are ongoing. So if you have requests for the floor, you may make them now. Everything seems to be said. Nora, do you have anything to comment? I want to thank all of you. It helps us a lot that you have created these speeches. If you can still send them to the RepCo list, I can get all the prerequisites and all of them for evaluation. Thank you for your activity. Remember to be active and utilize your member in the committee. Thank you. The proposal is that the Representative Council places on record the preliminary debate for the strategy work. Decided, closing item 9 and moving on to item 10, the student-centered development plans only. Let it rip. Thank you. I'll come down here so I'll have space. So, continuation to the discussion last meeting on the similar subject that we had last meeting, starting from, once again, with the background in short, what's this actually about, and what options do we have. Now we're in the situation for several years that many means to solve this project and these project challenges are something, and we believed in the project for a long time, and the board does believe in this project vision, what we thought on public side is that it's awesome, but we are currently something that we don't see as a thing that will be completed with the current specs. Here we have the options and short specs. We'll have the grounds later. The first option would be a survey, a new project discussion, and here I will use this word form, the fact that small changes will not solve everything. This is kind of the last stone that we should turn in this project, and this option is the option that will keep the student center idea alive and give more information on the future when we can sustainably create this. The other option is that we bow out of the project. The project takes a lot of resources each year. It can be grounded, that it costs lots of resources. We can have a good grounds for it, but we have good grounds for both options. And this option is that the European Council feels that even with this current information, it's impossible to solve these problems. And what do we have on the contents? So why do we have this discussion? A quick reminder that we have the KY timeout, we have the financial decision, and all in all, when discussing this, we have some history on the project, the goals of the project, large-scale challenges in the project, and then we have the board's template with the grounds and the decision options. So, why is this being discussed in our upcoming meeting? The first section is this KY's timeout. We decided to actually, KY board doesn't feel that this project is progressing in the manner that it should, and they wanted more time to allocate to find other options and solutions. Of course, this is a significant message that AYY's board wants to take seriously. And of course, we need to re-evaluate at this stage. The other reason why is this being looked at is the Financial Real Estate Committee, or actually Financial Directorate. The bolded part is that what have been fulfilled or what will be fulfilled. This is why we discussed this at the REPCO meeting. On the big picture, what will be done regarding the subject. So in the last meeting, we had the first background on the challenges and the situation. Now we are currently on the middle ground here. And then we have the options. If we continue with surveys, we'll have the changes to the project that will be handled in the next or the one after that, which is the last meeting of the year, with different kinds of options but better information. Then next we will go to the history of the project. We have quite many years in one graph, but we're trying to get as deep as possible with this one discussion, so you can get the big picture of what this project actually is. We have the 2009 that we are creating Aalto, and we want to be, TF decides that we want to be included. 2010 we formed the Aalto University, and 2011 we have the General Assembly that creates these prerequisites for the goals on the vision of openness. We have this therefore of Aalto, and we have this idea of a new house or a building. And at the same time, KY also receives the information that the business school will be moving to Otaniemi. TF starts work with this new project. TF and KY, start the surveys on what could be possible to create this kind of new building. At the same time, we also have this first discussions at the AYYE Repco. Then we have a few years of break. And in 2015, the arts students moved to Otaniemi, and this kind of starts the project again. At the stage, actually KY facilities in Otaniemi do not serve their purpose. Next, AYYE joins the project, and the Aalto University creates the chemist block design competition, which is won by Antti architects, and they get the task to create this project plan for the quarter, the block. Same year, we have this only approved document, the framework project framework prerequisites. We have the first draft of the project plan, and the project plan in this kind of project is a document where the costs are estimated and the scope of the project. Each party feels that the costs are too big, and that AYY's part, there is an unsure situation. Will they answer AYY's requirements? This starts the 2018, the more vision work project, and AYYE wants to further find out what are the needs in the community and the practicalities that have been taken. Several seminars, and many of you here, you saw the opiskelijakeskus.fi webpage. Based on all of this participation, we update the facilities plan. Then we have 2019, last year. We choose a project leader. We choose Sarako. AYYE Representative Council approves the intention plan. TF abandons the plan based on the fact that the architectural choices should have flexibility. There's unclear situations that they want a new competitive tendering for the project leader. Then we come to 2020, where the project continuity, we create a guidance group considering of the project party individuals who have been involved for a longer period. For example, we have the Financial Real Estate Committee members from AYYE. This has been developed significantly, and we are also preparing decisions for the AYYE Repco maximum budget from the facilities plan. That concludes the history of the project in quite a short amount of time. And the general point to help your understanding on the student union here is that we are slowly moving into the project, or we have drifted into the project, so we don't have kind of a clear statement. This is not something that we will get into this project. It was not something that we set. So we didn't have such clear decisions. So even though, based on many discussions, that we have this will to be in the project. We have used hundreds of thousands of euros into the project within the years, and of course lots of time. And in the heart of this discussion is the fact that we want to garner and gain this assurance that do we actually want to continue the project, and do we want to continue using our funds for it. And you heard the history. We are regrettably at the situation where we don't have any binding documents, and we can actually take a time out if we so wish. Another point, when we included ourselves in the project, we had the smaller focus on office plans, and the budget has been increased and increased again. just the fact because we have deemed that we need more facilities to which AYY would own the project, and with good grounds, because what we've discussed this year is that in order for us to reach this vision, AYY has a large role in terms of joint spaces and facilities. Then the party's goals, trying to distill them into one single thing. We have the AYYE, then we have AYYE, it represents all students, and we want open and communal spaces. TF's will is that for members, and kind of a Swedish corner in all. Next up, we have these larger scale problems in a more clarified manner. So starting from lack of trust, even though in the work group you have lots of trust between the members and between the parties, we have lots of open communications. But what we did in these things that are discussed of all parties. We're not blaming an individual party, but these actions in this project actually depict some sort of challenges. For example, in this project, to a general lack of trust. Not that there would be conflict, but in this project we might focus on our own side of things and not focusing on solving joint challenges. And also commitment and distrust, which has led to the fact that decision making is slow. Parties are struggling with equal resources. Parties are also different in terms of resources and resourcing. But yes, that's so much for expertise on joint voice. We've had this is something that we've lacked. Of course, this has to do with a lack of expertise. I guess we could have a joint voice, which could be an individual or party that's trusted by all three parties in the center that could bring these informations to each and every one of them at the same time, instead of all the different parties having different informations at different times. But this has led to the fact in this project that what I just discussed, the three parties, the decision-making organs have not agreed on things at the same time. And of course, all of us, we have bureaucracy. But both TF, KY, and AYY all do important decisions, so it shouldn't be a problem as per se. So, usually let's solve is that will the project actually go through? We don't have a lack of commitment because the parties might still detach themselves from the project, and so the level of inclusion and involvement is different. And the letter of intent is actually very, very important. It's something that we want. And also the ownership structure, I will give backgrounds in that. All in the letter of intent, I could mention that in this history part, what I mentioned was that the letter of intent has not been approved. The parties disapprove of what is being decided there, and they disagree, and they do not agree on many other parts. So the project is something that we want, and we want to develop it even without the letter of intent. But the Raide-Jokeri plan is actually keeping this project in a very, very tight timetable. And in short, as a whole, after the long opening, is that the project parties agree largely on what is the vision and what should the building be, but how it's actually coming to life is something that's not being decided yet.
This slide, what has been done so far to solve these problems. I will not go through each and every one of these bullet points. These are also in your email. The reason why this slide is here in the presentation is that I want to emphasize the need for bigger changes to the project, because we have tried to find solutions to these problems in many ways. For example, facilitate discussions between the parties, which have resulted in us realizing that the challenges are not between people, but because of structures in the project, for example. Sarako is the project leader, and also the steering group for a common voice. We talked about this unified discussion, unified voice, but you're gonna read through these in more detail afterwards. Then the ownership structure. It's not the intention here to now have a huge discussion about what the ownership structure should be in a project like this, but because we talked about this particularly in the previous Representative Council meeting, kind of the biggest topic, I'd like to give a bit more background of why this has been identified as one of the big challenges for the project. So, even though one of the several steps on this path of the project, it's a very big step because there are new proposals for the structure brought to the table, and looking into them, of course, will mean additional costs. Both looking into them, doing research, but also after these reports on the different models, we can only then see what they will cost to us, and for example, tax-wise. And because we thus far talked about a shared liability company, we haven't yet looked into these alternative models at this point. So it's possible to look into them, hire lawyers to do it, but it will take time and money. This is also kind of a problem of which came first, the chicken or the egg, because the maximum budget that AYYE has, for example, it will also affect the facilities program. Because we can't build some facilities, or if we'll exceed the budget, then we have to cut down on the facilities that we have. And if a different model would lead to higher expenses, which we do not know yet, it will reduce the amount of facilities, the amount of space we have in the building. If we give the facilities program to the lawyer, say this is what we want, we need to solve this, there's still the challenge that if it affects the costs, the alternative model, it will also affect what kind of facilities we will have. Then the board's basic proposal, which is that the Representative Council decides to make an investigation and negotiate the new project for AYYE. And as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, it's phrased this way because we need big changes to the project. And then there are two outcomes, depending on the results. We'll look into whether we can solve these problems, and this will have two outcomes. Either we will have a project that we can succeed in making our vision possible. We have some kind of plan to achieve these objectives. Or about the second outcome is that the result is that the project will probably not happen, and we will try to look for a plan B, for example, in some of our other building projects. And this is, so to speak, the last rock left to turn in this project. Last thing we have to do. And what does AYYE want from the negotiations? Well, first, to look into what are the root causes of why the project is not moving forward. In the group chairperson meetings, that we could have propose different models, and as KY and DF has done. But it's the important thing here to find the obstacles that really are the barriers for the negotiation and for the project. So how can we stick to our decisions? Resources are important, and then we also decide whether this is the decision-making model that we want to use, or should we use an alternative. Because, for example, now it would need to be expert-led so that they can prepare their proposals to the different bodies instead of their student representatives making all of these proposals. And also we want to have more long-term continuity, because there's a big risk that now when our people at the office change, a lot of knowledge disappears, because a lot of bored people in the project who will change now. And it also not be purposeful to slow down the project for the duration of training new members, or that something will change radically in the project over the years, so we need to have more continuity. So if this presentation would be focused on challenges last year, it would have looked very different than it looks now, because there were different people with a different perspective. So I need a proposal for a solution regarding the ownership structure and the letter of intent, and also how the different parties commit to the project. Also one voice for interest groups, bodies. So, and then we had a project leader that has each of the parties' trust, and this will lead to a statement of whether these challenges can be solved or not. And then a question of how can we at this point ensure that the new model would solve the problems we have. Well, our schedule is very tight at the moment. The board will decide on the things that you need to decide on at the start of December for that meeting. Also, continuity and resources are big challenges, because the big decisions will be made right at the end of the year, which causes a challenge that if the schedule is delayed, we cannot finish it in time, because new people will come in at the turn of the year. And this is not our only problem in the project. But you should also note that we're very certain of this. And then kind of more detailed ideas, why you should why you should agree with the board's basic proposal. We have this SWOT analysis, first class strengths. This is a new possibility that hasn't been explored yet. And also it will keep the vision of the student central alive, which is very important if we want to continue with the project. And weaknesses, it will take up resources away from our other operations. For example, preparing for the turn of the year. And also getting the solutions might prove to be difficult within the schedule that we have. And then also the kind of weakness that, as the board sees it, this is the last possibility for a solution that we have. Then opportunities, well, it gives more knowledge for the following representation council meeting, and then the opportunity also student center itself. Threats, it could cause some kind of tension between the parties of the project. So if we decide on a model that 2 parties agree and 1 disagrees with, it will most certainly create tension. And also a threat is that if we will not come to a conclusion and we will just have to continue the investigations next year. Next steps, if you decide to approve the board's basic proposal, we will assemble a team for the investigation negotiation. They will ask all parties to this, and we already tried to kind of find the problem at this point. And also taking opinions of other parties into account, possible decision models and suitable people to work in the project. We have decided on those. And also this person who act as kind of the voice of everyone. We will meet with the parties of this project, and we will meet together with the university's management to look at the next steps. And then finally the evaluation that can be solve these key problems. And the last slide. The board sees it that the next steps are either that the AYYE abandons the project or continues with an investigation and negotiation of a new project. So next, discussion. Yes, opening discussion. Request for floor can be submitted now. The chairperson, representing council, Edward Ulström, chairperson of our group. I'd like to state first that we fully stand behind the Student Center project. We feel that this is AYYE's most important project for the next 50 years. A possibility to build new facilities for AYYE that would enable our volunteer activity to be raised to a new level and also increase our ALTA spirit. It's very important that cooperation problems will be solved, and we trust the board to do this. But we also want to note, we have 3 things to note that should be taken into account when looking for the solutions. There are other parties to the project that have their own needs. One of these is that KY needs their own facilities in Otaniemi, and it is only a matter of time that they find some other solution to this problem. Also, the year is closing its end, and people will change. In the worst case scenario, the project will stop at the turn of the year, as has happened before. We are also missing our vision and concrete idea of our needs. I think best would be to have a vote on a preliminary facilities program so that people would have a better image of what the student center will be like. We still don't know what point we are now, even though we had a lot of discussion. Just talking about these cooperation challenges, the Representation Council does not help progress the project. If we find the new keys to cooperation, it's very important that we now all start working together, all parties of the project. Thank you. Any other requests for floor? Vilma Boltti, that asked the board how this investigation will affect the board's other projects that they're working on, and how much resource they still will take away from other tasks. Also, will this cause additional costs, or will this be included in the normal budget? Do we need to have a supplementary budget, for example? I can't give you an accurate answer, because we are now just at the point of looking at what are the root problems, how big the steps are that we need to take, which of course affect the scale of the project. And as you know, I'm here presenting this personally, even though I have a lot of other responsibilities as well. So this is just one concrete example that this takes away our resources. Of course it takes. And about the costs, as I mentioned, if we need kind of external help, we try to get it pro bono, so it will not cause additional costs outside the actual project. Thank you. Any other requests for floor? If not, if I've understood correctly, now we will vote on the board's proposals. No proposal for change and no request for floor, so closing discussion. Does everyone have their voting slips? Yes, let's wait a moment for everyone to get them. And vote counters, please come up here already. We'll soon get all the three alternatives. We will vote that we will either abandon the project or continue with an investigation and negotiation. And of course the third option is empty vote, which is the white slip. Does everyone have their voting slips now? Yes, would seem so. Soon have the options here up on the board. Stretch your voting muscles. Yes, so blue. The board's proposal is this investigation. So blue. So blue is that we will continue with an investigation and negotiation of a new project. Orange is that you want us to abandon the project altogether, and white is empty. Is this clear to everyone? Yes? Raise your slips now. I believe that the vote counters agree that this decision is very unanimous. Okay, thank you, Representative Council. Thank you, vote counters. So, with a unanimous decision, we will continue with the board proposal, which is that the Representative Council decides to continue with an investigation, to make an investigation, negotiate a new project for AYYE, according to which AYYE will make a decision on the future of the Student Center project. It's to be decided. Closing item 10, and now we will have a meeting break. After a 10-minute break, we will have the vote. We will soon select the chairperson of the representing council, and in accordance with the Student Union's Constitution, Section 6 on eligibility, each student union member is eligible as a member of the representing council or the board. Term of office is a calendar year, but the presiding officers of the representing council may act as the officers before the beginning of the term of office. And the voting system is described in more detail in Section 21 of Student Union's Constitution. Here, I will now state that two candidates, Jons and Samuli, cannot be present as representing council members for this item. The interpreter cannot make out what is being said. There are apparently more candidates.
Työjärjestys, he ovat kyllä ihan äänikelpoisia tässä kohdassa.
Yes, and they have the right to vote, also these chairpersons. But we have had this kind of practice that they cannot be present for this item. The candidates, but when the supporting speeches, we think it would be better that the candidates don't need to be present at that point. It's just a rule of procedure that we've used. And of course, we assume that they would vote for themselves, so it wouldn't really affect the voting result, even if they are not here present to give a vote. I think this is very good practice, even if it's not obligatory. Anything else to add? No? Then we'll tell more about the introduction process. First, we will draw lots. Use random.org to see which of the candidates will start. And when the other candidate is holding the presentation, the other will leave the room for that time. The candidates have 3 minutes to present themselves, after which the representing council has 10 minutes to ask questions. This whole time doesn't have to be used, but that's the maximum. And then after this, when both have been presented themselves and the questions have been asked, we have their closing speech to state why this candidate should be selected. And then after this, the stream will be shut off, and people who have not the right to vote are asked to leave the room. After this, there's still some time for good-spirited supporting speeches for your preferred candidate, and after this we will have the vote. And you'll be asked to leave this room when the votes are being counted. Is everything clear? An important point for this system, we will use this transfer vote system. So we have only 2 candidates, so we will choose the person who gets more votes. But if there's such a situation that the votes are completely even, both get 50%, then we will count the second order votes after that. So if you see that the other candidate is good as well, then you can also add their name. So So it's enough that you just put your primary candidate there, but if you think that both are good, you can also put the second candidate's name as your secondary candidate.
Mitä jos käy niinku teknisesti voi käydä silleen, että kaikki laittaa molemmat
What
nimet,
if
jolloin molemmat
everyone
saisi
puts
niinku
both
toisia ääntä
names
samalla
there?
tavalla, niin miten sitten ratkaistaan tämä?
So that everyone gets the same number of secondary votes? What will happen? That's why I propose that if you think that the other candidate is also good, you can also put their name there. Then it will be clearer if the votes are even. But if all votes, primary and secondary votes, are tied, then according to our regulations, we will toss a coin to see which one wins, if this very unlikely hypothetical situation would take place. Any other questions? If not, then let's start. We have random.org here. Both candidates, their names have been entered. We already missed our this so the lots were already drawn. So first we have Vehkamäki and then Nurmi. So Jonas, if you could please exit the room, and Vehkamäki, if you could please come up here. Now, if you appear, you do not have to wear a mask, because I feel that facial expression and gestures are also very important here when presenting and answering questions. Samuli, is everything clear? So you can start your presentation.
Kiitoksia.
Thank you.
Hyvää edustajisto.
Good evening.
Olen
Represent Council.
5. vuoden aaltolainen ja
Samuli,
opiskelija
5th year student
korkeakoulusta.
of engineering.
Kuluvana vuonna toiminut edustajistoryhmän Lujan ryhmäpuheenjohtajana.
I've been the group chairperson for Luja for 3 years. I've also been a representative of this group in the strategy committee. As chairperson of the Represent Council, I would continue to work done by previous chairpersons to create kind of atmosphere that would enable a platform for good, influential decision making. Why me? I'm a person who has eye for detail, but I can also keep the big picture in view. I'm good in steering discussion, facilitating discussion, and also know when I should step forward and when I should step backward. Keep the discussion flowing. Also have some proposals for development for the Represent Council's work for next year. I'd like to facilitate more discussion between groups, also outside Represent Council meetings. For example, in the group chair meetings or in the email list. Here, in these meetings, the discussion could be more efficient and more in-depth. Also, the discussion within groups should be easier to take part in the discussion. Another alternative, kind of a short summary of future issues for future Represent Council meetings. So that future issues should be kind of described. And there could also be kind of paraphrased appendices. That will also help groups hold better speeches and help Represent Councils keep a better track of what kind of decisions are being made here. Give a feedback also after meetings. Also see that this could
edustajien
be
varapuheenjohtajista.
good area of responsibility for one of the vice chairs.
Kiitos. Olen valmis kysymyksiin.
Thank you. So I'm now ready for questions. So I have time for questions. Please raise your hand. I'll start the stopwatch for 10 minutes now.
Joo, tosiaan edaktorina paljon keskustelee esimerkiksi opiskelujakeskuksesta vaikka AYY:stä tai tällaista, jotka on silleen
about student center, for example. It's still very important.
Samat aiheet nousee esiin tavallaan.
Kind of the same topics are not brought up continuously, then kind of these regular members maybe kind of out of it.
On sellaista, että sitä ei tavallaan normijäsen on aika kaukana siitä. Niin mitä sä tekisit siihen, että tavallaan
what would you do
AYY:n tärkeät kysymykset olisi
so that
sellaisia,
these
että
important questions
AYY:n normijäsen tavallaan olisi siis paremmin kaukana?
would be easier or easily accessible to regular members. See, there's more responsibility of the board and the office, but I also feel that this kind of, if we could have these meeting summaries, paraphrasals, would help in this. If you can have kind of a clear, easily to understand language of what was discussed in the meetings, it would also help in this. Yes, the interpreter really can't hear the questions because of all the static.
Testing, is this working?
Pim Voltti.
Ehdokas itse äänikelpoinen äänestämään omassa vaalissa.
And the candidate in elections. Yes, kind of, there are different views on this. Would seem, I think legally, according to our constitution, it is possible, but it's more of a good practice that the candidate will not take part in the vote. But it is technically it is possible.
Luukkanen skisma. Mikä sä näet edustajiston puheenjohtajan tärkeimpänä tehtävänä?
This is the most important tasks of the chairperson of the council. Thank you. The most important task is to prepare and facilitate meetings in a way that after the meetings, the office in particular will understand very clearly what is the opinion of the representative council, not the chairperson's, but the representative council's opinion. I think this is the most important task of the chairperson. Any other questions?
Paljon, että suurin osa edaktoreista on muutenkin tämän aalto-yhteisön sellaisia vähän urko-aktiivijäseniä, että
this kind of council members are kind of already active members of the community, which may lead to a situation where other members which will say that they have to prioritize their responsibilities. So, what do you think you could do so that the representative council members would prioritize their representative council tasks more over other tasks? Because of course this is a private matter, how to use your time, but I think by making involvement in these representative council activities easier would help in this, so that people wouldn't deprioritize it over other responsibilities. Vilma Voltti. What would you like to reform in the Representative Council next year?
Tämä toiminta on tänään suhteellisen hyvin toimivaa, että mä en ehkä sanoisi,
I feel that this is working quite well, so I wouldn't see the need for any kind of big reforms. But here, as in many things in life, there is always room for development. For example, in communications between Representative Council, the board, and the members. A member contacts you 3 a.m. They can find the bulletin board and they need a document from the Student Union's bulletin board for their own use. And what will you do?
Teen tietysti parhaani, jotta edustajista tai yliopiston jäsen saa tarvitsemansa tiedon käsiin.
Well, of course, I try to do everything I can for this person to get the information they need. The interpreter apologizes, they're still pretty unclear points. How do you see the relationship between the board and the Representative Council Chairperson? Yes, this is a topic that I talked about in my panel interview. I see that this relationship should be such that we always remember that we're all part of the same team. Of course, we can disagree here, also disagree at all. We can criticize things, but I see it's important and more efficient for everyone if the starting point is that everyone realizes that we are part of the same team, so to speak. Any other questions? Apparently no more questions. So the Representative Council seems to have all the information they need. So next, you will can hold a 1-minute speech of why you should be elected. Time's. Thank you. I see that the chairperson should have a personality, a person who gives space to others in the discussion, but can also steer the discussion the right direction. I feel that I'm that kind of person, and that's why I would be the best candidate as the chairperson for Representative Council 2021. Thank you. Yes, when you enter the hallway, please ask Jonas in.
Is it possible to get a runner for the microphone? Because it's a bit hard to passing the microphone and running back to the headphones.
It's possible maybe someone have this running microphone with the questions because we don't
something English.
We don't need to maybe do that. Yes, hygiene is important in today's meeting. Welcome Joonas, tai tervetuloa Joonas. Pääsemme englannin kieleen täällä.
Welcome, Jonas. Come on stage, and during your speech you may remove your mask. Facial communication is important. So you have 10 minutes for questions, and you have a closing statement after these 10 minutes. If everything is clear and ready, we may start. I may take the time, and this microphone here is on. So, the stage is yours. I'm Joonas, 6th year student, 2nd year Kultari, and also this year I've been the vice chair of the Representative Council, where I've also managed to chairperson and also plan with Suvi and Anneli on the RepCo's activities, and also thought on other matters. I believe that the most important task of the chairperson is to enable decision making. That before meeting, the chairperson ensures that you have all the required material, and during the meetings ensures that the decisions are made according to good management, and also everybody has the chance to voice their opinion. In addition, the Representative Council chairperson also acts as the voice of the RepCo towards the AYYE offices. It's important that the office knows what we actually discuss at the RepCo, what the RepCo feels on things, and what discrepancies the Representative Council feels might be imminent or evident. And for these tasks, the chairperson should have 3 qualities to ensure that they succeed in their task. These things are good facilitating abilities, especially that you have all the opportunities to do the best possible decisions, and to that the meetings go according to schedule, and you stay on track during items. The chairperson should also be knowledgeable in the regulations of the student union, and naturally the Finnish law. This due to the fact that the chairperson is the overseer of AYY's activities going to plan. This does not happen in a vacuum. You have the chairpersonship and the management, the office experts, and other parties like Elina to assist you. The Representative Council chairperson should also be easily approachable, because the chairperson carries the voice of the RepCo outside of the meetings. And one needs to have information on how the RepCo is thinking. If nobody's talking to you, you can't know that, so you need to be easily approachable. I feel that I have all 3 of these characteristics and attributes. Let's leave it at that. So now you have the option to ask questions from Joonas. So, you propose in your application on updating the regulations. What do you feel that is the chairperson's role in updating the regulations would be? I feel that the chairperson is not necessarily the expert who says exactly how the rules should and regulations should be made, but in general, the chairperson should see and understand and listen to the RepCo in that if there are problems in the regulations, for example, the fact that we cannot organize remote meetings and still make decisions, the chairperson needs to bring the voice of the RepCo forth and see if the issue could be changed. So as the representative, do you have the power to vote in a situation where they are a candidate? Are you talking about this situation? Or just currently I have been deemed ineligible to vote, which is due to the Representative Council's means of operation. If there are discrepancies, you may always vote on this. One should listen to the majority in this situation. So in this situation, yes, in general. Many issues that are being discussed here, for example, the budget or the student center, they might be quite difficult concepts to a lay member of AYYE. What would you do that the entire member base would be better on track on what we discuss here? An excellent question. There's no much sense, in my opinion, that we are only communicating about these issues once a month, like this is coming to the RepCo, but rather we should focus more on communicating on what's happening. And instead of having this one big information package, you could give the information bit by bit. What would you update at the Representative Council? What would you reinvigorate? Like I mentioned, in my application, I would start to renew and upgrade and update the fact that how sensible our regulations are, especially concerning remote meetings. In addition, I'd start to think on how the Representative Council could discuss things amongst themselves and how can you communicate amongst themselves and how can that communication be communicated elsewhere to the outside base in order for all the members to feel that this is their representative council. A member sends you a message at 3 a.m. that they can't find something, they can't find the bulletin board, and they cannot find a document that needs to be there legally. The person needs the document. What do you do? So that's 3 a.m. sends a message, no document, and they need the document. Yes. Well, regrettably, usually at 3 a.m. I'm not awake, so I'd probably in the morning start to look into the issue. What document is this and where should you find it? Who is responsible? And then would send that individual a message that this document is not available, please get the document there, and I would communicate to this individual afterwards that what processes are being undertaken to get the result. How do you see the chairperson vis-a-vis the board? their relationship? It's an excellent question. I would like that this would be a low threshold discussion. Communication would be flowing between the management and the chairperson, because the board's activities are very dependent on the representative council, and what's being done is very much dependent on the board, and vice versa. So this is why I want that there is a low threshold of communicating between the two parties. And each party would actively ensure that everybody knows what's being done. Also, we had how do you create low threshold communication? By being active myself, and by ensuring that the board understands that people can come to me and say things straight up. If you have three quick questions, we can get through several. How would you develop the representative council's communal spirit? This year we had lots of plans, lots of activities and events. We had city parties for the Repco and for the board. We had Christmas parties, but for reasons we couldn't arrange them. But if we think the situation will return to normal, I will hope that this will. I've also been an active looked at how guilds handle this. And I've tried to learn as much as I can from the guild activities. Reps Council members are usually very active. They are in very many things. What would you do that the Representative Councils members would prioritize their Repco work more? Very good question. I can't force anybody to do anything. Even though I'm primarily as a Repco member, what I can create this kind of feeling that here you can actually make a difference, that your voice is being heard in these activities. This would be a thing that I would start to do. So then we have the final statement on why you should be picked.
Yes.
Your 10 seconds are soon up.
Yes.
I feel that I would be the correct choice for the chairperson because that I have motivation and the knowledge gained by experience. Like I mentioned, I have good facilitating skills. I have strong knowledge of AYYE that I've managed to utilize this year, and I'm an easily approachable person. I'd like to continue all the projects that I have managed to start this year as a vice chair, and you will receive an excellent chairperson from me that has the burning desire to develop these activities and all activities in the Repco. Thank you. I'll ask you to excuse yourselves and then we'll place the stream.
Is everyone present?
Velmalta rupesi vuotaa verta nenästä, niin se ei välttämättä
Ready?
ihan heti.
Yes, a person had a nosebleed, so they will probably be here in a while.
Joo, ei mitään isompaa vissiin.
Okay, vote counters, please. Microphone on, yes. Excellent.
Yes, ääntenlaskuprosessi on
Yes.
suoritettu.
Votes have been calculated. Thank the candidates. And also that neither of them want us to cease the counting of votes. And now the result. The result is even. 22 and 20 votes. The candidate who got the more votes is Nurmi. Congratulations. And Nurmi, please come up here on the stage. Very beautiful. So the proposal is Chairperson Council decided to elect Joonas Nurmi as the Chairperson of the Council for 2021. Congratulations. Joonas, don't run away yet from the meeting, because we'll have a photo up at the end of the meeting. Closing item 11. Moving to item 12. Election of the person charged with the forming board. It's pretty similar to the previous process. In accordance with the Student Union's constitution, each Student Union member is eligible as a member of the Chairperson Council, or the board is eligible as president. And the Chairperson Council shall elect the former of the board. So next, we have Kimmo and Milja, our candidate. And we'll also go through the same process. Use random.org to see which one will be first. You both have 3 minutes for your introduction, then we have 10 minutes for questions, and then you have 1 minute for your closing speech. And then after this, we will close the stream for the voting and the support speeches. Any questions? We have 2 candidates. The candidacy is still open. You can still run as a candidate. So any new candidates? Apparently no. And we will close the candidacy. So, now we will see who will start. Roll the die. Okay, first Milja, then Kimmo. Kimmo, if you could please exit the room. Emilia, please come up on stage. So same as in the previous item, so that's all 10 seconds left. I will bang the gavel to let you know. So please, whenever you're ready. Yes, maybe a microphone would be nice. Yes, can you hear me? Excellent. Can I start now? Okay. Hello, everyone. Also, mom and dad, we're watching the stream. I'm Emilia. I'll be the vice chair of the board this year, responsible for educational policy and student media. It is responsibility of the president of the board is that the board can do their work job properly. Our day-to-day operative decision-making runs smoothly, and that it is done according to the will of the representing council. I think this requires for the president of the board to be able to bring people together, create mutual trust, communicate actively, and increase the team spirit, not within just within the board, but within the entire AYY. Next year, AYY will need a skilled, influential president who can navigate between creating community spirit and responsible corona restrictions, among other things. I'm very human-centered in my leading and also always want to discuss. I was good in finding solutions and in solving conflict. I also know how to work over Zoom and I'm very familiar with AYY's operation. I believe that the Student Center will be a significant project also next year for AYY, which will require the president also to be active. In the autumn, I've been involved in looking at the next steps of this project and talked about it every week. So ready to accept this challenge, but it's always good to keep in mind that it's unrealistic to say that the president of the board holds the solution to this project. It's also good to keep in mind that we've done the vision work for years and we've used hundreds of hours for this project only this year. If we want to complete this project, it means that we need top experts in project work to help and guide us and also promote our best interests. One of my biggest personal goals is to support the group dynamics and well-being of the board, and I feel that I've succeeded in it and also learned new things. I've led AYY, been one of the leaders to lead AYY part of the coronavirus pandemic. I've led the student media project and also looked and prepared the whole big picture. In this project, I have shown that I'm also can be very influential. I'm a good advocator, and I'm knowledgeable in advocacy and finances and in community activities. I've also been very competent in leading this year, and I'm very passionate about all this. Thank you. Now, dear Representative Council, can now ask Emilia some questions. And you will be given the microphone by Chris. Lukanen. What will AYY be in 2022 after you have been president for a year? That's an excellent question. Thank you, Julius. I think when 2022 starts, we'll have a student community that will be a good well-being, passionate. We will have moved over from Corona to a normal life. And I believe that, for example, in the preparatory work within AYY, we have come up with new routines, new practices, especially decisions that are cross-cutting. I hope that by that time we will have a good new direction for the student center. I think that those are my main points. Hello? You've noticed that this year the president of the board has had some kind of snack at the Terveysen council meetings. So we have to pick one snack that you would have in every Terveysen council meeting. What would it be?
Tänä vuonna mun eväsvalinta on ollut tällaisena
This year
nestemäisessä
it's
vaihtoehdossa
been
pullissa. Mä en näe
in liquid form. It's usually been Moomin lemonade. I don't see any need to change that. I think I will stay true this very artificial product also in the future. These are nice, these off-topic questions, but please try to stick to questions that actually affect the selection process.
Fielman from Balti, how do you see digitalization as a part of AYYE in 2021 and in the future? I feel that it's a super large part. We should have had it for this year. But the coronavirus naturally kind of caught us with our pants down in a manner we could not anticipate. So, by prioritizing, it's one of our best ways to make our services profitable, especially our services, talking about housing, rentals. We will actually cut down on manual work, which gives the service team the opportunity to focus on developing our services. You mentioned in your application that you will make communication better. How would you do that in your words? We have 3 points, which I mentioned in the Kultarengas panel. First of which is that AYYE communication should be taken closer to where our members are. In practical terms, it could be in Telegram or other channels that our members are actively using, which is something that would be a really, really good way to reach our members. Let's say if we have, if our members are in TikTok, well, maybe we should go there. I might be too old to understand it, but somebody probably is not. That's first. Second point is about, when we talk about weekly newsletters. Maybe renewing them in some way. We have just begun that work. But I would like to see this is an important and could be an interesting channel for our members. Third is just increasing the amount of communication. More is more. We need more resources, of course, for the working hours, that we have the opportunity to tell everybody on what we actually do, what kind of advocacy do we do, what is the student union, how can you get involved, etc. Will the China cooperation continue next year or in the future? Well, at least this year we've discussed our cooperation projects, especially when I see it's very unlikely that we would focus on a monetary potential. When discussing AYYE finance, I can't see that this is something that will bring money to our members, or worth, in a sense. Yes. How do you think that AYYE real estate should be developed into a more sustainable direction? especially we need to definitely develop it. This is an issue that, like Dua mentioned, this carbon neutral AYY to the 2025. This is even bigger in terms of new constructions. Our goals are still quite small, but that as a student union, we should look at our material choices. And because we know that during the 50 years that the building is there, that the material choices affect lots into its carbon emissions. But I can't say I'm an expert that can just offer solutions. But I know I have the knowledge, and we know that we have the will to affect this. And AYY is next year's action plan project, so we can develop this project and these aspects. Should AYY take a stance on the freedom of speech regarding what happened in Belgium and France? On freedom of speech, I think that AYY is a societal influencer that should take a stance on issues that pertain to students studying and the students' place in the society. We've taken a stance on, for example, the Hungary protests on freedom of speech that concern students. In this case, I'm not an expert, but to my best depiction is that this is France and Austria issues are not something that concerns students. So my first idea would have been that not necessarily, but I am willing to listen to the if anyone has a differing opinion on whether we should. Tell us a memory on when you actually felt the Aalto spirit very strongly. A special Aalto spirit.
Musta tuntuu, että aika monet tyypit vastaa aina tänne saman, mutta se on kyllä pakko olla tempaus 2016.
The stream. Here we go. Yes, it's back. I'll talk about Tempaus 2020. The Tempaus project. I think Tempaus was something that what we can do if we combine our strengths. How cool it is that our community, in a large party, just goes forth and does something nice. I was really proud of being an older person. Then you have your final statements, questions on why you should be chosen as the former of the board for AYY. Thank you. I've managed in this first speech on why I would be best. I'd like to remind you that you have kind of a purchase decision here. I'm offering you certain things for next year. I think the most important things that we need to focus next year is that we support our students over the coronavirus pandemic, both through advocacy and communality. Communication is another key point, and real estate and service development. I offer people-centric, focus-oriented, result-oriented leading, and I believe in cooperation. And if you see that this is the vision that you wish AYY to have, I'm ready to give AYY my soul for this. I'm going with the same slide in the former of the board. After which the repco has 10 minutes of time to speech. I will inform you when the time ends. You may start when you are ready.
Moi kaikki. Mun nimi on Kimmo Saira.
Hello.
Mä oon tänä vuonna
Ms.
aloittanut
Kim Saira.
jos mä vastaan kiinteistöistä.
This year I'm in the board, in charge of real estate and housing and the student center.
Oot varmaan huomannut, että 4.9.
You've possibly noticed that we've just discussed the automation membership removal.
On tehdä AY:stä niin hyvä ylioppilaskunta.
My goal is to make AYYE into such a good student union that people want to belong in it, whatever happens with automation membership. It is done by developing the community, services, and affecting things. All of these in balance. The discussion has proven that AYYE has requests and need for different kinds of activities. Regrettably, we do not have the resources to create new ideas and implement them. But one day we may be the student union that can. In order for us to have room for new ideas, we need long-term, stable financials. AYYE is building, during this real estate strategy period, about 1,000 new flats. These and the rest of the campus development must be done by listening in a manner that listens to the students. You just decided to look whether or not the student center project has the potential to actually happen. I think it's a good choice. It requires, however, a new system in order for it to work. I hope that it will. These pandemic times have been shown in our activities. We haven't, during a pandemic or exceptional circumstances, the leader is required to actually realize these kind of things. And I am a calm individual, which is why I feel I would be the correct person to form the board in 2020. So after this, the Representative Council has the opportunity to ask questions from the possible upcoming former of the board. So raise your hands. How will AYYE look like in 2022 after your year of leadership? I fervently hope that the pandemic is over and AYYE 10 has been organized. Hopefully. We'll see. Then we'll also have the board term ending and your term as a repco. I hope that you manage to do significant and good decisions and have some fun at the same time. What kind of communication is the way, in your opinion, to bring AYYE and the associations together? I feel that in the student union's communications, important is that it's good-mannered. We as a student union, we need to fulfill certain kinds of requirements for formality, but we should still create new means, like a 2000 means, like using videos, communication, and how nice these streams are. I think that we could actually focus more on video. I think that's a good way to develop communications. How do you see digitalization as part of AYYE in 2021 and in the future? I feel, first of what I start from the digitalization is that it's a large item. It pertains to activities, development of communications, real estate. For example, the service office has managed to cut down on hours that you use to hand out keys when you have remote access. And I see that this is the means that we should follow in terms of direction. You mentioned sustainability in your beginning. How would you develop real estate and building to a more sustainable level? Well, number one is that build the right amount of apartments. How much fun it is to build apartments. You shouldn't build too much. Each building is a burden to the environment. Another is that these buildings are there for a long time. Currently, people want studios, but it doesn't mean that they want studios in the future. We have examples of solutions where there's flexibility in the building, like having a studio, like two apartments with a light wall that can be torn down after some decades if you want to increase the size of, instead of having two studios, having a one larger one or a two-room flat. Or solutions such as this. Will the China cooperation continue next year and in the future? Well, China cooperation is a nice tradition, but it's really hard to actually keep up without seeing people. Then again, we've gone into this mostly remote world. It might be that we may, with new means, return these contacts to China with remote connections. It's time for questions if you have any more questions. Should AYYE take a stance on freedom of speech, that the things that have happened, the atrocities that happened in France and Belgium? Well, I think it's kind of a... We cannot bring new discussions by saying that killing people is bad. I'm not saying that AYYE should not feel that way, but I think using resources for this is not the best advocacy we can do. You still have time. Tell us a significant memory or moment when you felt the Aalto spirit, when you felt you're proud of Aalto. Started thinking of my studying years back, and I have to say that I like to party. Large parties are best. We have lots of people. You kind of bump into people you know. Not sure if I should say hi or not, but I'll still say hi. Next year you will be with the board member who is in charge of real estate. You will disagree on how a project should go forth. When this is being brought to discussion for the board, whose opinion will be heard louder? It's a tough question. Hopefully, as a chairperson, I wouldn't be so deep into real estate issues that are board member doing real estate next year. I believe that I could find in myself the side that gives space. Luukkanen? What would be your strength as a chairperson, and what do you need to develop and to be better at? My strength is that I'm calm, serene, and I know my directions well. I'm very determined. I would give the board members space to bring forth their own opinions. We have 9 people in addition to the chairperson who are all wonderful and awesome people who have views on how to do things. But as a counterweight, I'm not the most energetic person. It requires effort on my part to be energetic and be really enthusiastic. So I would probably counterbalance that by choosing a vice chair who would be energetic. I'm really sorry, but for equality's sake, I need to reiterate this question. Kimmo, we have noticed this year that AYYE board chairperson has had this kind of a snack at the meeting. So if you had a regular snack at a meeting, what would your snack be? That's a good question. I had too much coffee, which is not sensible during the evening, but hopefully I had a water bottle. We have 5 seconds, so yeah. Thank you. I thought it was a very, very nice question. Thank you to you. Next up, you, Kim, have 1 minute for your final speech, in which you can answer the question, why you? AYY has the prerequisites to create the world's best student life, despite the pandemic. It is enabled by a lively student community, services that support well-being, and advocacy that has meaning. In order for us to succeed in these during the pandemic, the board needs a leader that recognizes the correct questions. This is why I feel that I am the correct choice for the board former 2021. Thank you.
difficulty. Yes, so we're going to take a photo at the end. And the stream is breaking up once again. Okay, now. Moving to item 13, other business. Finally, I grant you the right to speak.